there will be no final episode spoilers in this video. Grant Horvat and the Bryan bros just dropped perhaps one of the coolest shows in golf that I've ever seen with their new Your Golf Tour, where they brought together YouTube's bests and the internet's brightest to compete for up to $3 million on the biggest stage, or perhaps one of the biggest stages YouTube has ever seen. And today, after all of the dust and some of the drama has settled, I want to take a deep dive into everything Your Golf Tour, to talk about what they did so incredibly well, what surprised me the most, how they could potentially even improve going forward, and what questions still need to be answered about just how big this Your Golf Tour thing will become. Okay. 3 months ago, Grant Horvat and the Bryan bros announced that they would be coming out with some sort of home for great competitive and televised golf. But this time, it wouldn't be on one of their channels like we're all so used to. It would be on something new, a channel called Your Golf Tour. And initially, I was kind of skeptical, at least a little bit, at what this was gonna be. Without too many notes or indications of what it would actually be, it kind of just felt like another series like they would drop like any other, and that would probably get old eventually. As you probably know, watching this video, I think it's a lot more than that. Initial drop. Because I was initially a little bit skeptical of what was going on, I wasn't waiting at the edge of my seat to see what they were going to drop. But then I watched it, and it was sick. It was exactly what I needed to see immediately. The draft was amazing. It was exactly what I needed to kind of get into everything. For anyone who's ever played fantasy football or fantasy baseball or basketball or whatever, you know that draft night's probably the most exciting of the entire season. And that's how it felt, right? It was fun to watch these guys and get into what was going to happen with introductions to all these characters that I'm already so used to, and then see them separated and the excitement build with all of these personalities, like I'd said, going out and competing on a platform that I'm comfortable with, all the while playing for that money and those stakes that we rarely ever to see online. And it's those stakes that I think really separated this from every other even missed cut or video that we have seen from Brad Dahlke, Grant Horvat, good for a very long time. And this had it because it had money, and these guys in all of the videos looked like they cared about that money. They even had stakes in between the videos before the money was even divvied up at all, where guys were gonna make the cut, and therefore, just like the Invitational, the video would be losing some of its biggest characters very quickly, where you probably wanted your favorite character to continue going. However, an important note for why I think this was even better than the way the Invitational did it was because this video, or these sets of videos, were just pieces of a larger series where every point, every dollar matters. And so the characters that you would be losing in this, yes, would still not only be staying on the property and would be seen in the videos going forward, but they would also still care about what happens because they would be affected moving forward. That's something that I think was really tough about the Internet Invitational, where not only did you miss out on some of the characters because they lost immediately, and so the rest of the 7-episode series, you didn't see them at all, but there were also so many other characters out there that each of their air times was drawn down because it was split between so many other people. There were so many matches going on at once that you really couldn't get too much of a character build until the very final stages. And that did help a lot of guys like Chaz go on an unbelievable run and I think really grow his platform. And obviously Brad blew up from there. And on top of the format, I think being really healthy relative to what we've seen, it did a great job of having all of the contestants we care about going out and delivering great golf and then even better great golf moments that I was getting excited for. There were moments where I felt similar feelings to the way I feel watching the PGA Tour every week, seeing somebody come from behind, or Chris Gotterup snatch up the win at the John Deere. It gave me a similar feeling to those smaller PGA Tour events. Did it feel like a major, watching whoever won win or watching whoever break through at the last moment? No, but let's be honest, the scale's a little bit different here, and I don't think that's necessarily what they were going for, and that's perfectly fine. And it helped a lot that the money was pretty significant. I'm pretty sure the winners, that whole team came out with $50,000, which would have been equal to finishing above, or right around 26th in the John Deere Classic on the PGA Tour the same week that this was posted. That's huge, especially considering that unlike the Internet Invitational, this is something that will continue on for the rest of the year. There's more opportunities for these guys to make money and more opportunities for the products to grow even more. And one of the things I appreciated so much about what the contestants did is that they seemed to actually care about the money. Now, not all of them did, and I'm going to get into it in a second, but it's such an invited change on the platform to see guys actually care and be driven and have the stakes for a YouTube video. And they cared throughout the video, but they cared so much right at the end. It was so exciting to watch Josh Mayer and Grant Horvat in the cart watching everything unfold and react with us about what was going on, constantly reiterating the stakes of what was happening and why it was so serious that someone was hitting a shot here, or why their teammate was standing behind them like biting their fingernails nervous because of what was going on. It allowed, I think, me as a viewer to get into my feelings and my interest in the story more than I had throughout the rest of the series, just because I had kind of a commentator and an announcer working me through that and experiencing it with me. That's also probably one of my bigger criticisms or things that they could probably fix going forward. I do think it would have been a little bit more intense and probably a little bit more exciting, though, to have maybe each team have an alternate that's only going to really come in if somebody gets hurt or somebody gets injured or whatever, but someone who's also going to get paid out and so cares how these guys are performing and is also probably a YouTube character in one way or another, so they know how to handle themselves on camera. And they, like Grant was doing at the end of that episode, were trying to create that story while it was all unfolding because they knew the viewers would be able to enjoy that reaction happening in real time on their phone. And honestly, I just think it'll help keep people in the story a little bit more. Maybe it helps viewer retention. I don't really know, but I think I would have liked having that because I enjoyed it so much right at the end of the episode. And speaking of keeping people in the story and keeping them invested and having them care, let's talk about the wildcard picks. Ben Haddon, Jean-Philippe, Michael Block, and John Peterson. This area, these guys are basically where most of the drama actually exists. Block's a weird story. He's, been in the limelight more, obviously, because he's been in the PGA Championship, made it again this year, missed the cut. And isn't really liked very much online. I don't really care. I don't have an opinion for or against him. I think it's funny that he still uses the Odyssey 2 ball, which is cool to see, while all the other guys are using top whatever Lab Golf came out with. But Block led to the weird drama with this whole thing, where he had a little bit of a rant after his episode complaining but that his team didn't do as well as he wanted it to. I don't want to spoil the whole thing again, so I'm not going to say exactly what happened. That's fine. It felt like a little bit out of place, maybe because the rest of the video was, these guys don't have beef, right? There was no animosity. It wasn't like the Internet Invitational where there's drama and there's kind of people frustrated or upset at each other or mad at Luquan or whatever it is. There wasn't any of that, so that being put in there felt a little bit odd, but it was put in. And then it was probably made worse by the fact that Grant and the Bryan Bros came out apologizing for it, and I think pointing more attention to it than originally. To me, this tells me that this is very much not the product they want to put out. Something in that realm of the Internet Invitational with all of that drama. And that makes sense knowing Grant, very religious dude, seems like he's got a great head on his shoulders and very level-headed dude. I can imagine that it was eating him inside, that this was creating some of that drama, some of that negativity even. So I'm not surprised he addressed it, but I think it probably did make the situation worse going forward. But this Block thing is just not that deep. To me, personally, I don't think it's that big of a deal. But what I think is deep to me, and what is important to me, is that they went out of their way to create a new channel for Your Golf Tour, which means they want it to last. And I think that's where most of my questions lie. And obviously, I think I've made my point that I thought this whole thing was incredibly exciting. But that hype and that momentum, it's just harder and harder to maintain as the channel grows and people become more and more familiar with what you're posting and what you're talking about. And having that hype and excitement building over time is what can create a sustainable product. It's what makes things that are drama fueled, like Love Island, be able to live for so many years, because it constantly has that hype and attention and just seems to thrive while shows die out over time. And realistically, we are in uncharted territories right now. We don't even know how the Internet Invitational will survive this year. We don't even know if it will be able to keep that same momentum from last year. I think there's definitely a market for it. People care about high stakes golf with people they care about. That's why so many people were excited with it. That's why I was so excited about it again. And realistically, with the YouTube golf world growing and growing, more professional golfers embracing it, with things like Live looking like it's collapsing, I think the door is definitely open for a tour like this to not only be a place for YouTube and the internet's best and most exciting golfers to go and show off their skills and compete for big prizes, but also potentially have guest stars of other tour players. I think guys like Minwoo Lee, Tommy Fleetwood, John Rahm, Bryson obviously would be great additions to this. Obviously, the PGA Tour doesn't let these guys just go and do whatever they want to do, especially not on other tours, which this has officially established itself as. It'll be interesting to see how that's developed. And I actually don't think your golf tour will be accepted very well just yet by traditional golf things, by the golf.com, by the PGA Tour, by those entities that are so storied and have so much pull and power in the world of golf, because this space has been kind of looked down upon for a while by them. Main point is that I think it's going to be hard to survive that. But I think this so far has the characters to be able to survive that. And I haven't spoken to Grant personally, but from the guys I've talked to about Grant, he has one of those wild content minds that can just grow and grow something really well. And so, yeah, answering my thumbnail, I think it can last. Smiley just posted another podcast with John Peterson talking about the YGT. And it's probably going to be his most successful YouTube video ever, or at least it's on track to be that. And I think that says something, that a storied player in the professional golf game is now talking about this world, and it's blowing up more than anything else he's ever done, at least on this platform. I don't think this is gonna die here. Maybe my clickbait may led you to think about that, but hey dude, whatever, the game's the game. But thank you guys for watching. Let me know what you think about the YGT. Let me know if you think there's anything I didn't mention about what you liked or didn't like and what they could improve upon as well. And thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.